In the outer rim of the galaxy, far from the bustling trade routes and crowded starports, the skies above the planet Virulon were calm. Twin suns cast a golden hue across its violet plains, and alien children played in the shade of massive crystal trees. Above, the planetary defense grid shimmered quietly, a routine shield that had never been tested. Then came the shadow. Without warning, a massive object emerged from the darkness of space. It didn't warp in or blink through a gate. It simply appeared, silent, black, and massive, larger than the planet itself. No lights, no insignia, just an impossible shape, dark against the stars, blocking out the suns. The orbital sensors screamed. The object didn't respond to hails. No ships escorted it. It had no visible weapons. But when it moved, space around it bent. Gravity twisted. Time slowed near its edges. The Virulon defense fleet scrambled, but their ships were dust before they launched. The sky turned white, and then nothing. From orbit, the entire planet lit up, cracked in half, and disintegrated into dust. A weapon never seen before, pure gravitational rupture, tore the core of the world apart. In less than a minute, Virulon was gone. The object disappeared as silently as it arrived. Hours later, the footage reached central sectors. The Thalvax Dominion, which had ruled Virulon for over 2 centuries, held an emergency war council. No signals had been intercepted. No survivors had escaped. There were no demands, no warnings, and no trace of the attacker. But in one grainy, zoomed-in satellite clip, just before the destruction, a faint outline was visible. One word, carved into the hull of the ship in ancient Terran lettering. Oblivion Star. Light years away, deep within the Veil Nebula, a colossal vessel drifted in a sea of starlight. The Oblivion Star was not built. It was grown, shaped over 3 centuries by a civilization that vanished from galactic memory, humanity. Inside the command bridge, where walls breathed and machines thought, Captain Jack Voss stood at attention. Tall, sharp-eyed, and quiet, Jack wore no medals. His uniform bore no rank symbols. But everyone on board knew who he was. The commander of silence. The blade of Earth. He faced a large, glowing sphere hovering in the air, an interactive interface pulsing with life. Phase 1 complete, the AI said. Its voice was deep, calm, and genderless. Virulon neutralized. No civilian signals escaped. Jack nodded. He didn't speak right away. He looked out through the translucent wall of the bridge. Ahead of them, space folded like a river under pressure. The ship prepared for another jump. Status of next target, he asked. The AI responded, Kirill Dominion Stronghold. Population, 3.2 billion. High threat index. Clearance granted by High Command. Jack remained still. Has Kirill made any surrender offer? 2 weeks ago, the AI said. No response from Command. Of course not, Jack thought. He turned from the window and walked down the ramp to the central control platform. Around him, dozens of officers and specialists worked silently. No one questioned orders. No one hesitated. This was how they had been trained, how they had been raised. Born in the hidden Genesis Ark colonies after Earth fell, Jack had never set foot on soil. He had learned to walk in artificial gravity and studied tactics before he could read poetry. To him, silence was strength. Doubt was dangerous. Victory was survival. But still, as the ship prepared for its next jump, something stirred deep inside him. A memory, distant and unwanted, his mother's voice, whispering bedtime stories of stars, of peace, of what humanity once was before the fall. That world was gone. Now, they were war. Elsewhere in the galaxy, in a palace carved from living stone, Archemperor Vala Xor watched the destruction footage in silence. His advisors muttered in fear, exchanging glances, but no one dared speak. Vala was old, yet barely aged. Cybernetic enhancements wrapped around his skull, his eyes glowing like coals. His voice was quiet when he finally spoke. Find it. But, Your Excellency, the origin is unknown. No warp trace. No hyperspace distortion. I said find it, Vala repeated. His gaze turned cold. And prepare the Dominion fleets. If this is who I think it is, we may be fighting ghosts. The chamber fell silent. Across the stars, fear spread like a disease. Back aboard the Oblivion Star, Jack stood alone in his quarters. The lights were low, the air still. On the wall, an old Earth relic floated, a fragment of a shattered Earth flag, preserved in a containment field. He stared at it for a long time. Then he turned and spoke a single order. Prepare for next strike. The lights pulsed. The ship responded. In the darkness between stars, the war had begun. The Oblivion Star drifted through the void like a god in hiding. To the outside eye, it was a nightmare made of metal and gravity, a planet-sized warship with no visible engines, windows, or lights. Its surface seemed to ripple like water, made of dark matter and quantum alloys unknown to the rest of the galaxy. It traveled without sound, without signature, vanishing and appearing as if reality bent to its will. Inside, it was alive. The ship's corridors pulsed gently with energy. Walls shifted shape depending on need. Air refreshed itself. Artificial gravity moved with precision. Every system was synced with its crew's biology, designed not for comfort, but for complete efficiency. Captain Jack Voss walked slowly through the command corridor, his boots making no sound on the living floor. He didn't like unnecessary talk. He didn't smile or crack jokes. At 39, he had led more covert strikes than most captains twice his age. Yet no public records existed of him. Outside of the human shadow fleet, he was a ghost. But to the crew aboard Oblivion Star, he was something more. He was certainty. Jack entered the war briefing chamber. Its dome ceiling showed a holographic map of the galaxy, alive with red and white indicators. Red marked known oppressive regimes, flagged by humanity's hidden council. White were observation zones, neutral, unaligned, or unknown. The Kyril Dominion glowed red. Below the map stood 6 officers, each trained from birth like Jack, raised in the silence of the hidden Ark colonies. They snapped to attention as he approached. "Sit," Jack said simply. They did. "Report," he ordered, turning to First Officer Tara Wren, a sharp-eyed woman with a voice as precise as her posture. Kyril fleet status, 112 active warships, all orbiting the capital moon Varric. Planetary shield strength, moderate. Civilian population, 3.2 billion. Jack nodded slowly. "Any signs of diplomatic response?" "They've sent 3 messages requesting peace talks," she said. High Command ignored them. Jack's eyes narrowed slightly. "We logged that." The room fell silent. Everyone understood the implication. Jack had begun keeping his own private records, an action that, while not disobedient, was unheard of. Officially, every decision came from High Command. Captains executed orders. Questioning them wasn't protocol. But Jack had started to observe, to doubt, and his crew, though silent, followed. "Target profile?" he asked. Tactician Varen Cole spoke next. "Standard military hierarchy. Heavy use of forced labor. Civil unrest is rising, but intelligence suggests they are not a direct threat to us." In fact, he hesitated. Jack looked at him. Varen continued. "They've asked for our help. Not surrender. Just aid. They're being crushed by the Thalvax Dominion." So that was it. The galaxy's tyrants were starting to fear something worse than each other. Us. Jack stood for a moment, thinking. The ship hummed softly under his feet, aware of his thoughts. Finally, he spoke. "Prepare the jump to Varric. I want the fleet in low orbit, but weapons cold. No fire unless I give the order." Tara blinked. "Sir? Cold weapons? That violates Phase 1 protocol." "I'm aware." Varen swallowed hard. "High Command won't like that." "They'll survive," Jack said. But Kyril might not. Later, Jack returned to his private chamber, a small, quiet space without luxury or distraction. A single data pad floated in front of him, showing archived footage from before humanity vanished. Old Earth cities. Families walking under neon skies. Children laughing in grass. Jack watched in silence. These were the things they were fighting for. Not conquest. Not power. Survival. Legacy. Peace. But peace never came easy. Not in a galaxy ruled by fear. He tapped a command. A hidden message system opened, a one-way line to an unknown location deep within the veil. He spoke softly. "This is Voss. Kyril is not what we were told. I'm delaying the strike. Observing. Requesting re-evaluation of threat status." He sent it. Whether anyone received it, he didn't know. Outside his window, the stars shifted. The ship began to hum louder. They were preparing to jump. In the distant heart of the Thalvax Dominion, Archemperor Vala Exor stood in the Vault of Echoes, a secret chamber hidden beneath his throne. The walls displayed star charts, energy readings, and fragments of intercepted footage. All of it pointed to a single conclusion. Humanity had returned. He studied the fragments carefully. Though centuries had passed, he recognized the design, the technology, the tactics. He had fought them before, long ago, in the war that erased Earth from galactic maps. But they hadn't died. They had waited. He turned to his science minister. "Prepare the Dark Fleet. We're going hunting." "But, Excellency, what if they're not attacking us directly?" What if they're only targeting the weak? Vala's eyes gleamed with hatred. Then we remind them, he said, why they vanished in the first place. Back on Oblivion Star, Jack stood once more on the bridge. The ship stretched before him like a cathedral built for war. Lights dimmed. The air held tension. He stared at the stars ahead, thinking of Kirill, of High Command, of Earth itself, still hidden, still watching. He didn't know what was right anymore. But he knew what wasn't. Jump in 30 seconds, the AI said. Jack didn't blink. The stars bent. The ship vanished. The Oblivion Star emerged from the jump like a shadow pulled across the sky. In seconds, it was in low orbit above the moon Varric, the heart of the Kirill Dominion. Below, city lights flickered along the dark curve of the moon's surface. Massive defense turrets rotated slowly, scanning the sky, but no alarms sounded. The Kirills had received the message, humanity was here. But they hadn't fired. On the bridge, Captain Jack Voss stood with hands behind his back. His eyes scanned the surface below, taking in heat signatures, energy grids, and comms traffic. The Oblivion Star's sensors picked up nervous chatter. The Kirill fleet was armed but unmoving. They're waiting, said First Officer Terrarin, glancing at the data stream. They know we could wipe them out. Jack nodded. Open a comms line. Let's see if they really want peace. Terra looked unsure but followed the order. A blue orb of light shimmered in front of them as the comms channel opened. Seconds passed. Then a face appeared, gray-skinned, four-eyed, and tired. A Kirill in ceremonial armor bowed slightly. I am Chancellor Belvar of the Kirill Dominion. On behalf of my people, I welcome you, respectfully. Jack studied him carefully. You requested aid. Explain. Belvar didn't hesitate. The Thalvax Dominion has drained our resources, enslaved our outer colonies, and now forces us to build their weapons. We are ruled by fear. We heard that humanity punishes tyrants. We hoped. You hoped we'd fight your war for you, Jack interrupted. No, Belvar said quietly. We hoped you would see that not all empires are alike. Some of us are trying to survive. Jack didn't answer. He ended the call. Silence returned to the bridge. Orders from High Command will arrive in minutes, Terra said. They'll expect the strike. Jack said nothing. He stared out at Varric, at its quiet cities and shielded domes. Then he turned and walked off the bridge. In the secure war chamber, Jack activated a private terminal. The room sealed. No one else was allowed. A message from High Command pulsed in the air, already decrypted. Voss, your hesitation is noted. Varric must fall. The Kirills assisted the Thalvax for over a century. Their hands are not clean. No exceptions. Complete the strike. High Command. Jack read it twice. Then he deleted the message. Meanwhile, across the ship, officers and soldiers waited. Tactician Varen Cole stood at the weapons hub. His hands hovered over the targeting system. All weapons standing by. One order, and it's done. But he hesitated. Around him, others whispered. Was Captain Voss delaying the strike? Was he defying command? On most ships, such rumors would mean rebellion. But aboard the Oblivion Star, it was different. Jack Voss had never failed a mission, never showed doubt. And now, he had paused. That alone shook the crew. At the heart of the Thalvax Dominion, Archemperor Vala Exor received word of humanity's standoff with the Kirill. He smiled. They're hesitating, he said. Just as I thought. He turned to his fleet commander. Deploy the Shadow Fleet to Kirill space. Let them see what real war looks like. But, Your Excellency, if humanity is there, they won't expect an attack from behind, Vala said. Let them watch us burn the Kirill before their eyes. Let them feel powerless. Back on Oblivion Star, Jack gathered his senior officers in the central command sphere. Around them, a projection of Varric floated, pulsing slowly like a heart. I'm not ordering the strike, Jack said flatly. Gasps filled the chamber. Varen stepped forward. Sir, with all respect, that's a violation of direct orders. I know. High Command. I know, Jack said again. And I'm ready to answer for it. Terra looked at him. Tense? You believe the Kirills? I believe they're not the real threat, Jack replied. We weren't built to erase every system with a red mark. We were built to end tyranny. We need to remember the difference. No one argued. They just stood in silence. The weight of his words filled the room. Jack turned to the AI. Activate defense grid. No strikes. Shield the Kirill capital if Thalvax forces arrive. Confirmed, the AI said calmly. Your command has been logged. Disobedience will be reported to High Command. So be it. An hour later, the Thalvax Shadow Fleet arrived. They emerged from hyperspace behind the Kirill moon. hundreds of stealth cruisers and energy lancers cutting across the sky. Their plan was to attack the capital while humanity hesitated. But they didn't expect the Oblivion Star to intervene. The ship reacted instantly. A barrier of pure energy formed between the incoming fleet and the surface. As Thalvax ships fired, their weapons were absorbed or deflected. In response, Oblivion Star released a single, focused pulse of gravity. Dozens of enemy ships crumpled like paper. The rest retreated within minutes. The Kyril capital was untouched. The people of Varric watched the sky and whispered in awe. They had not been saved by a friend. They had been spared by a force greater than their fears. Later, alone on the bridge, Jack stood watching the stars again. He had disobeyed. He had defied everything he was taught. But for the first time, he felt like a man, not a weapon. The AI spoke softly. Incoming message. High command. Urgent. Ignore it, Jack said. He turned, walking away. Whatever came next, he would face it as himself. Beyond the outer rim, where star charts end and cosmic storms ripple through space, the Veil Nebula pulsed like a living wall. For centuries, no one had crossed it. Navigation systems failed, ships vanished, and even the bravest captains turned back. But deep within this chaotic fog of light and dust, Earth had survived. And now, it was under threat. Inside the hidden Genesis system, 3 planet ships, Oblivion Star, Eclipse Blade, and Silent Crown, formed a perimeter around Earth/strongholds. These colossal ships, each the size of moons, had been built in complete isolation. Forged in secrecy. Programmed for war. For 300 years, humanity had waited. Prepared. And now, their hiding place had been found. In the war chamber aboard Oblivion Star, red lights flared across the room. Sirens remained silent, the crew trained to respond without panic. Enemy fleet inbound, the AI reported. Shadow fleet. Thalvax signatures. Coordinates confirmed, Veil breach, Sector 4. Captain Jack Voss stared at the holographic map. Dozens of red markers streamed through the edge of the nebula. The Thalvax had found them. How? Terrarin asked, eyes wide. They shouldn't have been able to track us. They didn't track us, Jack said. They followed our hesitation. His decision to spare the Kyril had revealed more than he'd intended. Someone, somewhere, had watched. Vala Exor had taken the risk, and now the war had come home. Raise full defenses, Jack ordered. Signal Eclipse Blade and Silent Crown. I want all 3 ships in position. No mercy. Inside the Veil, space shimmered as the Thalvax Shadow Fleet closed in. Their ships moved in tight formations, long, needle-shaped cruisers lined with gravity torpedoes and pulse cannons. Designed to crack planetary shields. Built for destruction. At the center of the fleet was the flagship Iron Scepter, and aboard it, Archemperor Vala Exor himself. He stood in silence as his forces approached the Genesis perimeter. Beside him, his second-in-command spoke cautiously. We still have time to withdraw, if they respond in force. Vala smiled faintly. This is exactly what I want. Let them show their power. Then the rest of the galaxy will fear them as I do. He turned to the tactical display. Target Oblivion Star. Cut off the head. The battle erupted like a storm. From the shadows of the Veil, Oblivion Star surged forward, its hull glowing with controlled energy. It moved slowly, but with purpose, each shift of its body generating ripples in space. Its weapons activated, no visible barrels or guns, but energy ripples flowed along its surface. Space spun around it as it fired a single shot. One Thalvax cruiser collapsed instantly, crushed inward by invisible pressure. No explosion, just silence and dust. The Eclipse Blade followed, launching light pulse mines that detonated without sound, each one disabling enemy shields with precision. The Thalvax fired back, flooding the field with torpedoes and gravitic bombs. Smaller human defense ships, designed for fast response, intercepted them in bursts of light and metal. Still, the enemy advanced. Inside Oblivion Star, Jack stood in the command core, giving orders as the battle unfolded. Hold the line. Draw them in. Captain, the AI interrupted. Flagship Iron Scepter is maneuvering. Vala Exor is on board. Jack's eyes narrowed. Prepare the command channel. Moments later, a live communication link opened. Vala's face appeared, calm, composed, eyes glowing cold behind his cybernetic enhancements. Jack Voss, he said with a grin. So, the ghost speaks. Jack didn't respond. Vala tilted his head. You've grown careful. Hesitating. Sparing civilians. Speaking of peace. Jack's voice was steady. You attacked our home. I revealed your hand, Vala said. You should thank me. Now the galaxy sees you for what you are, monsters with godlike weapons. Jack stepped forward. We never wanted to rule. But you do, Vala said softly. Maybe not now. Maybe not you. But your high command does. And soon, someone in your ranks will fire first and forget to stop. The screen went dark. Jack stared at the space where Vala had been. Then he said, lock weapons on Iron Scepter. Prepare full strike. Confirmed, the AI replied. But be advised, civilian vessels are caught in the battle zone. Jack froze. Vala had planned this. He had shielded his flagship behind refugee transports, hostages to his strategy. Fire now, and innocent lives would be lost. Jack closed his eyes. The warship around him pulsed, waiting. No shot, he said. Shift gravity field. Push the civilian ships clear. Then fire. It would cost them time. It would risk the moment. But Jack gave the order anyway, and the ship responded. Using gravitational force like a sculptor uses clay, Oblivion Star moved the refugee ships gently but swiftly out of the way. Then, with one massive surge, it unleashed a blacklight core beam. The Iron Scepter shattered. Vala Exor's fleet crumbled. His gamble had failed. An hour later, the debris field stretched across thousands of kilometers. The Veil was quiet again. Inside the Genesis command station, Jack stood before a council of admirals, holograms flickering around him. You disobeyed a direct order, one of them said. I did, Jack replied. You risked Earth's security for enemy civilians. Jack nodded. And yet, another voice said, you destroyed Vala Exor. Yes, Jack said. Silence followed. Then the first admiral spoke again. Proceed to Phase 3. With caution. Jack gave a sharp nod. The connection ended. Later that night, alone on the bridge, Jack stared out into the stars. They were safe, for now. But something had shifted. He had crossed a line. Not into disobedience, but into something more dangerous. Independent thought. He knew the others in high command would take notice. Some would agree with him. Others would wait for him to slip. But he didn't care. He had looked into the eyes of tyranny and refused to become it. Behind him, the stars burned. Ahead, more empires waited. Captain Jack Voss stood in silence on the command deck of the Oblivion Star, his eyes locked on the floating data screen before him. The lights above were dim, casting a cool blue glow across the curved walls. Around him, his officers worked without a word, aware that a moment of great consequence had arrived. The war was no longer distant. It was here, at their doorstep. Vala Exor was gone. His flagship destroyed. The Shadow Fleet defeated. But the galaxy wasn't celebrating. It was afraid. In the days that followed the battle in the Veil Nebula, broadcasts began spreading through hundreds of systems. Footage of the Oblivion Star destroying enemy fleets, shielding alien civilians, and bending the laws of physics played on loop. The message was clear. Humanity was no longer extinct. Some called them protectors. Others whispered the word gods. But fear grew faster than praise. Across the galaxy, old empires held emergency meetings. Neutral systems armed themselves. New rumors spread, stories of more planet ships, of Earth rebuilding an empire of its own. In every corner of space, leaders asked the same question. What does humanity want? Inside the ship, Jack watched the reports in silence. The council back on Genesis had ordered Phase 3, the destruction of remaining hostile powers. Clean sweeps. Final warnings. He didn't speak. He didn't move. Instead, he sat alone in the war chamber, the lights dimmed low. On the main display, the target glowed in red. The Narrowan Enclave, a brutal empire known for forced labor colonies, bio-experiments, and population control. Their crimes were not in question. But what was? Whether total annihilation was justice or something else. Tara Wren entered the chamber quietly. She stood beside him without speaking. She'd known Jack long enough to see the weight on his face. You're thinking of stopping it, she said. Jack didn't answer right away. Then he said, I don't know if we're still the same people we were when this started. Tara crossed her arms. We've done what no one else could. Stopped tyrants. Protected lives. Isn't that who we are? That's the problem, Jack said quietly. We have the power to wipe out entire empires. With one order. No challenge. No fight. Just silence. He looked up at her. What happens when we make a mistake? When we get it wrong? What if we already have? Tara didn't answer. In the command core, the AI reported an incoming message direct from the Narrowan. They've sent terms of surrender, the AI said. Requesting terms for peace and population evacuation. Show me, Jack ordered. The screen lit up with the face of a Narrowan delegate, tall, pale, and trembling. Captain Voss, we know your power. We saw what you did to Thalvax. Please, allow us to relocate our civilians. We will lay down all arms. Just give us time. Jack stared at the screen. Behind the alien, dozens of small transport ships were already fueling up. Civilians lined up, some carrying children, others limping from wounds. It wasn't a trick. They were afraid, but they were trying to escape. Then came the message from High Command. Delay no longer. Annihilation approved. No evacuations. All Narrowan systems are to be erased. Begin immediate planetary-level strikes. Show the galaxy no hesitation. Jack didn't speak. His hands tightened behind his back. The Oblivion Star waited. Its weapon systems were online. The black hole core inside the ship pulsed, ready to fire a gravity burst capable of tearing the Narrowan homeworld into dust. Terra stepped forward. Captain, your call. He stared at the screen for a long moment. Then he gave the order. Deactivate weapons. The room fell silent. Even the AI paused before responding. Confirm? Strike order denied? Confirmed, Jack said. Open full civilian evacuation corridors. Provide escorts if needed. Terra exhaled slowly. Her eyes softened. Send this message to the galaxy, Jack said. Word for word. He turned to the main console, his voice strong, clear. This is Captain Jack Voss of the Oblivion Star. Humanity has returned, but not as conquerors. We do not seek to rule. We do not destroy for the sake of power. We came to punish tyranny. But now we choose another path. If you lead with cruelty, you will fall. If you choose peace, you will be spared. We are not your gods. We are your warning. The transmission was sent. Within hours, thousands of systems heard it. Across the stars, flags were lowered. Weapons fell silent. In some empires, rebellions began. In others, peace talks were requested for the first time in centuries. The Oblivion Star remained still, watching, waiting. Back at Genesis Command, the council was divided. Some praised Jack's restraint. Others demanded his removal. But none could argue with the result. The galaxy had changed, and humanity was no longer hiding. That night, Jack stood alone on the deck. No officers, no orders, no screens. Just the stars before him, endless, bright, and watching. He thought of Earth, of the stories his mother told him, of peace, and music, and sky. Maybe they hadn't become monsters. Not yet. He didn't smile, but something inside him eased. And then, softly, he whispered, "We are still human." The stars were quiet now. Not in the way space was always silent, but in the way tension drains from a room after a storm has passed. Across the galaxy, the endless hum of war had dulled. Battles paused. Weapons powered down. Leaders whispered instead of shouted. Humanity had returned, and then, unexpectedly, had stopped. On thousands of worlds, people looked to the sky not with fear, but with questions. Why didn't the human warships continue their campaign? Why did the most powerful fleet ever created suddenly vanish, just when it had the power to rule all? The answer was simple. They had made their point. Aboard the Oblivion Star, Captain Jack Voss stood at the center of the bridge. The massive view screen ahead showed a slowly rotating Earth, blue oceans, white clouds, and the familiar curve of continents. It had been centuries since it was last seen by outsiders. But Earth had endured. The planet was protected now by an invisible defense web, a living shield woven from gravity fields, AI swarms, and cloaked satellites. No ship could enter without permission, and Jack had brought his ship home. All surviving fleets have returned, the AI reported. Final civilian evacuations from Narrowan space complete. No casualties. Jack gave a small nod. Orders from High Command? Asked Terra Wren, standing beside him. There are none, Jack said quietly. High Command had gone silent after his last broadcast. They hadn't responded with approval or punishment. No demands. No corrections. And Jack understood why. He had changed the path of the fleet, and the Council was watching to see if the galaxy would change in response. It had. Some empires had collapsed under their own weight, unable to maintain control now that fear was no longer enough. Others had begun democratic reforms, trying to avoid the Oblivion Star's gaze. Even hostile factions paused their aggression, unsure whether humanity would strike again if provoked. It was working, without more war. Later that day, Jack stood alone in the quietest place on the ship, the observation hall. It was a circular chamber with no consoles, no weapons, no armor. Just a window into deep space. He stared out at the stars. No missions waited. No targets remained. His officers had begun rotating off duty. Some were returning to Earth. Others had chosen to join peaceful outposts across the sectors they had once watched burn. Tara had left him a note before she departed. You didn't just stop a war. You reminded us why we fought in the first place. Jack held that note in his hand now, folded tightly. He was tired, not from battle, but from the weight of command, the constant line he walked between protector and destroyer. He had done everything to avoid crossing it. Now, for the first time, he could rest. Across the galaxy, myths began to grow. On colony worlds, children told stories of the ship that appeared without sound and left tyrants in ashes. On neutral planets, leaders warned each other in meetings, be careful, or they'll return. Some even began calling the warships by name, not as military vessels, but as ancient spirits. Oblivion Star, Eclipse Blade, Silent Crown. No one knew where the ships were now. No sensors could track them. No scouts returned with sightings. They had disappeared again, vanished into the same darkness from which they came. Back in the heart of the Genesis system, Jack made one final decision. He walked to the ship's core and placed his hand on the interface plate. The walls around him pulsed softly, waiting for his command. AI, he said, set sleep protocol. Confirm. Entering dormant status? The voice asked. Yes, Jack said. Full shadow mode. Remain hidden. Observe only. No engagement unless Earth is threatened. Understood, the AI replied. Sleep mode initiating. Goodbye, Captain. Jack closed his eyes as the lights dimmed and the hum of systems began to slow. His breath was steady, calm. The war was over for now, and humanity had made its choice. Far above Earth, the Oblivion Star faded into the black sky like a dream. No flare, no exit trail, just silence. And one final message burned quietly into the memory of the galaxy. We are still human, but never forget, we are watching.